I'm going to share my screen and present using some slides, and occasionally I'll turn off the slideshow and I want to show you robot. So hopefully you can see that. It's basically a fundamental kit bot, and it's a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. So the reason that I got into or wanted to do this presentation is I go to FLL tournaments a lot, and I see lots of fantastic teams who've really got a handle on the project and on the core values, and they look very put together, and they get to the robot table and they struggle considerably. And I think a lot of the reason for that is maybe their coach doesn't have a lot of experience coaching FLL and coaching robotics, or doesn't know how to program themselves, and they don't really know how to steer the students in the right direction. So I know this year there's a lot of new technology coming out with the Scratch interface and the new Spike Prime module. And so what I wanted to do was really just focus on strategy from a coaching perspective, not from a specific robot build perspective. So I'll go ahead and share my presentation, and then we can start to go through it. So I wanted to break it down into a top 10 tips for coaching for robot success. This presentation is about the robot game. So, there's 3 different areas of FLL. We have the robot game, we have the project and presentation, and we have the core values. Lately, the scoring rubrics have changed, and the actual score on the robot table is taken into consideration for judging prizes and awards. And so that just makes the robot score that much more important. And this presentation is intended for rookie teams or teams struggling with their robot table score. So the assumption that I want to make here is that you don't have a lot of time. Like you've got these 3 pieces to build. You don't have a lot of time to invest in the robot, and the robot can take a lot of time. It takes a lot of time to design and build a really good robot, and it takes a lot of time to program a robot. And my other assumption is that you want to get every team member involved. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how we break down our team as we go along here as well. And I'm also making the assumption that your team wants to rank at your tournament and you want to have fun. So in order to rank at a tournament these days, you need to score points at the table. So I'm going to give you a top 10 tips for scoring points at the table. So number 1, set up for success. So this is the coaches that I'm talking to here. Here's a preseason checklist for you. Make sure that you have laptops and your laptops have the software ready. You don't want to spend time during your team's meetings loading software onto a computer. You want to make sure that your robots are charged and that you can connect to them, and that you've updated the firmware on your robots. And the robots and the laptops are communicating, whether you choose to use Bluetooth or whether you choose to use wires. Just make sure your wires aren't broken. I've run into that a lot. There's a lot of sort of things that can chew up hours of time with the team where you could have done that in advance. The other thing that I suggest, and for you and as a coach, and not leaving this to the team, is to create a backup strategy. So sort of where will, when the team writes a program, where will it be saved, and how will you as a coach back it up? So that way when your team comes up to you next day and they say, I lost my program from last day, which will happen, I guarantee you, it always happens to me. Hopefully you have that USB backup. I failed there sometimes where I don't have it, but when I do, I can tell you the relief from the student's perspective is amazing. And then here's another time saver. Let's say you're really short on time, like you're starting a team this week that you want to compete in December. I would recommend to you as a coach to build the table models. I know it's a great core values exercise to get together as a team and build those table models, but there's nothing in the rulebook saying that the kids have to build the table models. And if you build them yourself, you'll know that they're built correctly and that the models will work in the way that they're intended to work, which saves your team a lot of time. And it can save a lot of heartbreak later if you built a model incorrectly and you programmed for that model and you designed for that incorrectly built model, and you get to a tournament and the robot model is built differently than the one on your table. That can be a lot of heartbreak, and it can be a lot of frustration and tears, and you just don't need that. And if you're starting really late as a rookie team, I would just have the coaches and the mentors build the model. So that way, going in day one, your team can start focusing on how to score points. Tip number two, big tip, read the rules. I know this should be an obvious statement, but coaches read and understand the rules. Your students will, the rules are not complicated, but sometimes students can misinterpret them. And the key to scoring points is understanding how the mission score the points. An example from this year's mission models that's really subtle as a subtle rule for replay is that health units, in order to score, cannot be touching any equipment. And you can score the health units in the same area that you can score your innovation model, like around the bench. There's a gray area around the bench. And it might be tempting to put your health units touching your mission innovation model and deliver them together all as one thing. But if your innovation model is touching your health units won't score. So having the idea of understanding that your innovation model is equipment and understanding that the health units can't touch equipment in order to score is a big thing. So just make sure that you're not trying to score points in a way that the judges will take those points away from you. The third thing I want to point out is the kit bot is a good bot. I know that teams want to design bigger bots, and I think that's a great thing. And it's something that as you gain some experience working with robots that you should definitely do. But if you're a rookie team and this is your first year, build the kit bot. And then I would suggest we, as our teams, have made 2 or 3 modifications to the kit bot that really sets them up for success. So the 3 mods are to change the front arm from the loop into a stick and put bumpers on the front and back. So I'm going to pause this now and show you our bot so that I can show you what it looks like. Hopefully you can see me. Here comes the bot coming in nice and close. So this is a standard normal kit bot, and it has 3 modifications. One is we've taken the loop off the front and we've replaced it with just an arm that goes up and down like this. Very, very simple. There's gears at the front here of this bot, and normally there's a loop that goes from the side and around, but in this case, we've taken that loop off and replaced that one segment in the middle with an arm. So now this arm, if I have an attachment, let's say like this attachment, I can plug it into the loops on the arm really easily with one piece that just plugs in, just like that. The second thing that we do is we put a bumper on the front and a bumper on the back. And the reason for the bumpers, the key elements to the bumpers is when you're launching at a base, you can align the bumper against the side of the table, which gives the team members a nice solid place to put the robot when they start it and launch it at a base. The other thing is if you're driving forward and you're doing something this year like working on the step counter, you want a nice solid surface so you can hit the step counter here, here, here. It gives you lots of tolerance to hit that step counter. Another great thing for the step counter would be to run along the wall, because then you know exactly where you are, but you don't even have to run along the wall. If you have a nice front bumper, you could do the step counter pretty easily. Hopefully that was okay from the audio. Is my audio still okay? Okay. I'm going to go back to the presentation. So now that we built our kit bot and we modified it to put bumpers on the front and back, we're ready to go. So the reason that I recommend this is by the end of week 2, you can have a nice solid, or even the beginning of week 2, your second meeting, you can have a nice solid robot that you can use to accomplish lots of missions and score lots and lots of points. And like I said at the beginning, really this presentation is about scoring points. The next thing, tip number 4, is write really, really simple programs. You don't need to follow a line. You don't need a sensor. You need no sensors on your robot. We take all the sensors off of the robot and we don't put any sensors on our robot. All you need is to go straight forwards or backwards for a distance, turn left or right, put the arm up and down, and there's a block that you can use to add comments to document your code. That's what you want to do. So dead reckoning, do things close to base, go forward like 2 rotations, do an action, come back to base. Make it really, really, really simple. Because you're not trying to, maybe you want to get all the down into the corner and start working on the treadmill or the rowing machine, but you don't need that to score a ton of points. The other thing from programming, keep the robot clean. I often see teams that are struggling with the robot have a program called Kaylee and Kaylee 2 and Miranda 2 and then Miranda 2B and Miranda 2B number 2, and they can't figure out which program to run. So delete all the unused programs off of your robot. Keep your robot super clean. Don't have programs sitting around on the robot on the competition table that they're not intended to be run. That's just a recipe for doing the wrong thing, and it's hard to score lots of points with that. Rule number 5, 1 robot, many tools. In the top 10, rule number 5, freeze the robot design early. So when I go back to our robot design, you know, it's a really simple robot and there's no reason to start modifying that robot. As you break up your team and teams are working to score points, the sub-teams should be focused on the attachment or the equipment that they're going to push that's going to carry scoring points out onto the table. They shouldn't be focused on how do I take the robot apart and add new arms or new attachments that are going to get in the way of the other things that the other sub-teams are doing. So one of the rules that we have is no modifications of the base robot allowed. Teams are working to build equipment and attachments and to program and accomplish the mission. And then I wanted to give you this sort of, sometimes when you're looking at an attachment and you can't figure out how to attach it, one of the great ways to look at things is to kind of maybe invert them. So I'm going to show you the hint of attaching the robot to the tool instead of attaching the tool to the robot. So I think may have even got this from Control Z at some point. So let's imagine that I've got a tool that looks like this. Here's my simple tool. And I want to attach it to my robot. Well, I can attach the tool to the robot, or I could just have this tool that sits on the table, and then I attach the robot onto the top of the tool, and it pushes it out and brings it back, and then I just lift it off. So it's super fast to attach to this tool. It takes 2 seconds at base. Robot comes back, I lift it off the tool, and I'm ready for the next. I can attach my next mission to my robot. So it's an example of, just think of it in the way of how can I design this tool to encourage the kids to think about how fast can I get this onto the robot or get it off the robot. And maybe I can even attach the robot to the tool instead of attaching the tool to the robot. So let me go back to my presentation. Rule number 6, nothing falls apart. So can it pass the shake test? So one of the things I ask my students to do, if they have this part that they're going to attach to the robot, can you pick it up with one hand? pick up the piece with one hand and have it not fall apart. And then if you gently shake it like you would as you're going through the course of a tournament, does anything come off of it? Does it fall apart? Sometimes when you pick it up with one hand, you crush it. So really having a shake test or some sort of test that you're dropping or banging the part and it doesn't come apart, that is the right attachment. And if you find that, you need two hands, and if you drop it just wrong, it comes apart, there's nothing more disappointing at a table run than having your components, your arms or your equipment come apart at the table. So big top 10, nothing falls apart. Number 7, which maybe should have been number 1 because it is the whole reason for this presentation, is plan to score points. You won't score points if you don't plan to score points. So doing things like saying, oh, I really like the strength test, or I love the rowing machine, or I want to flip that tire. Flipping the tire is super complicated and doesn't score any points. So do things that are close to base that are easy to do. So what I've done here is list out my top easiest missions. This is a baseline. You should be able to accomplish all these missions in about maybe 45 seconds, maybe a minute 10, and you're at 270 points and you've got another minute to go. And now you can think about what other stretch goals can I have? But really you should be passing with a base kit robot like this, the 25-point mission inspection. You build an innovation model and you put it around the bench. You do the step counter, it's not hard. You do this, maybe pull the top person off the slide and bring them back to base. So one person off is 5 points plus 10 for bringing it back to base. The bench, just 10 points for knocking it over. I haven't even done anything, didn't remove the pull-up, didn't remove the bar on the bench, just knocked it over, 10 points right there. The pull-up bar, drive underneath it for 15. If you're using the kit bot, it's a highway under there. Like there's nothing. You go forward, 4 rotations from base, turn and drive straight and you're under that bar. Like it really is simple. Robot dance, who doesn't want a robot dance? I'm so excited by the robot dance. This is going to be the best mission of the year. I can't even imagine people pulling their robot up and skipping the robot dance, because my teams, for sure, that's the one thing that they would spend most hours on, is how to make the most amazing dance. Boccia, so mission number 8, you've got that hoop, and you've got a bunch of cubes sitting in base, 13 of them. And if you don't use them for anything else and just take them in a big shovel and dump them in the boccia ground, and the yellow goes in the center, you got 75 points. And there's no reason you should be able to do that. Health units, there's 3 starting in base. You can put them in the gray area around the bench. Like I said, not touching your innovation. And the last thing is precision. Don't lose any precision markers, and you've got a score of 275 points. I would think most teams should be able to do that. Somebody's got a question? So I think most teams should be able to get at least to that level, and probably even score over 300 by thinking about what extra time do I have and how could I use it. There's a lot of great things that you can do with that time. So plan to score points, and number 8, reliably plan to score points. So this is an add-on to number 7. So plan to not interrupt your robot. There's 60 points on the table if you don't have to interrupt your robot. And so how do I know a mission works? I've seen a lot of teams that develop a mission, and the first time it runs, they go, oh, great, I've got this mission. I can go on to something else. And what my teams have done over the years is, a mission works when you can run it 10 times in a row, and it goes out, does its thing, comes back to base 10 times in a row without needing to interrupt the mission. Then you've got a working mission. know your launch spot. So part of reliability is to know how you're going to launch this robot. Am I up against the wall? Am I using the squares? Which squares am I in between with the wheels or the front bumper or the back bumper? Again, you know, you can build launch jigs, but if you're a rookie team, just know where to put the robot. Nothing that's close to base really requires that precise an alignment. And you should be able to get those missions that we outlined above. Test your tolerance. So try moving it over half a block one way or the other, moving it forward or backwards, or twisting it just slightly so it's not quite in alignment, and see what happens. So see how far out of alignment you can get before the mission no longer works. And if you have good tolerance where you can be off a little bit one way or the other, then you have a much higher chance of scoring that mission during the tournament. And a big hint, you can run along the walls or run into a wall to know where you are. So the walls never move. And if you hit a wall and you use it to square your robot up, you know where your robot is and you know that it's square against that wall. An example where you could use that if you're going for a stretch mission of, say, getting on the treadmill, you can run out towards the treadmill, put your turn so your butt is facing the wall, back up against the wall, and now you know sort of the distance you are away from the wall. You're touching it, and then you can go and get on the treadmill. So
Richard,
plan to score points, plan to score them reliably, and score them in 2 minutes and 30 seconds. So I can't reinforce this enough. Practice, practice, practice.
Richard?
Changing your attachments in base is a dance, and you should choreograph it. Know where each person is going to stand. What are they holding when the robot comes back to base, or what aren't they holding? What do they do first? What do they take off first? What do they put on first? Who's getting the next mission ready? So next. So it's actually a very, imagine that it's dance steps and you're choreographing this dance and you want to try it over and over again. So this becomes second nature to the team members. What are they picking up? When are they putting it on? What position is the robot in? And then they find that it's very, very repeatable. So there's someone unmuted. Damien, I wonder if you could mute your mic. Perfect, thank you. Thanks a lot. And then last but not least, when you're done, stop. So this is really hard for students. You've got a system, it's working, you've scored 295 points, and then you decide, no, I'm gonna go for 350, and you change everything in the last 2 weeks. There's not very many teams that can actually tolerate that level of change, and it's not for rookie teams. Don't do that. When you're working and you've got something that's running, plan to freeze, back up all your code, make a backup of all the working versions, delete everything off your robot that's not working, and don't introduce new programs until everything is working perfectly in under 2 minutes and 30 seconds. You're way better off refining, practicing, and practicing more. Practice your RDES. Practice talking about your missions. Practice something else other than adding more in the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks is not the time to do that. Practice, practice, practice. So that's all I have to say for my top 10 of how to score points at the table. Now, what's your role as a coach? And I kind of wanted to go over this because as I thought it through, I thought, what are the things that I do as a coach that helps the team to get there? And the answer for me is ask a lot of questions. So the number one question that I ask is, can you show me? Can you show me? This just worked. Can you show me? For mechanical design, can you hold it up for me? That makes sure that it's not going to fall apart when they hold it up. Can you attach it to the robot for me? Show me, can you take it off? Are pieces left behind? The worst thing about attachments going on and off a robot is you end up with those little black pins stuck in the spot, and then the next person's trying to use that spot, but there's a black pin stuck in the arm. So can you take it off? If there's a piece left behind, is there a way to modify the arm or attachment so that that piece doesn't get left behind? From a functional design point of view, Sometimes students can pick up a piece of Lego and build an attachment like the ones that I showed you, really simple design. And then they use some wrist action to try and do the mission with it. And really, can you show me how the robot will use that as key? So taking your attachment, sticking it on the robot, and then manually moving the robot by hand, pretending that the robot's going to drive around back and forth. The robot doesn't move sideways on the wheels. It only goes forward and back, or it can rotate one wheel and the other one, but it can't skid sideways. So if that's part of your design of your mission, then you really need to realize that very early on and change the attachment so it's not part of the design. Launch, so where does it sit? Where do you line that when it's at base? Where are you lining the robot? Can you tell me about that? If you had to tell your friend, can you tell them how to align it? Those types of questions. Is that the same place you aligned that before? I noticed it didn't work this time. Did you put it in the same spot? Like that type of question is really, really useful to getting it into the team members' minds, what they should be thinking about. Reliability, can you do it again? Like it doesn't work, they want to go change the code. Don't change the code. Can you do it again? Watch it 5 times. Does it always miss on the same side? Does it always miss in the same way? Now you've got a way to modify your program to make it more accurate. Always ask, is there some way to make this more reliable if it missed? Is it just random, or is there some way to make it more reliable? Oh, I misaligned it that time. Well, why did you misalign it? What were you thinking that caused that to get misaligned? Watch it again. Oh, can you do that again? What do you see when it misses? Can you ask them what they're seeing? One of the big things for programming is save often. So I just yell out, save your work randomly throughout the day. I find that helps a lot because, oh yeah, I didn't save it. Every time someone comes up to the table to run something, have you saved your work? What's the name of your program? Is that the same program you were using last day? What changed today? Why doesn't it work today? Read your program to me and I will act it out. So this is a huge one. Students are totally frustrated at the robot's not doing what they say they programmed it to do. The robot's wrong. And I just say, okay, let's start at the beginning. Read your program to me. I'll act out the robot. So I've got one arm in front and I'm walking, back up, turn, walk, arm up, arm down. And eventually they get to a point where they're reading the code and they go, oh, I see it. And they don't want to talk to you anymore. So definitely acting out the program is a big deal. Watch the robot with them. Have them describe what it's doing. And one of the things you can throw in, did you see that when it seemed like it jittered, it danced back and forth? Do you have something in your code that makes it go back and forth? Can you tell me about that movement? And then always, can you put some comments in your code? So once upon a time in the EV3 software, in the Mindstorm software, there was, you kind of wrote loose comments around the code. And then when you move the code, the comments didn't go with it. But now there's a comment block. It's a blue block. Use that block, stick it in your code. And then that way, when you add things into your code, the comment moves with the code. It's a big thing. Choreography and base, which mission is running first? Describe to me what you'll do when the robot comes back. Is that where you should be standing? Who's going to take that piece off? What are you holding in your hand? Where did you get that? And then they always want to hold it in their hand away from the table. We do a lot of switching off of the people running the robot. So no, you can't be holding that attachment, the 4th person in line, and just magically have it appear at the table. It's all got to be sitting on the table. Call it off. Know when to call it off. Are we having fun today? If we're not having fun, and I ask my kids that's a core value, are we having fun? And if they say no, it's time to call it off and do something else. If they need encouragement at the end to do one more, can we all do one more run? And one of the things that I do as a coach is keep a scoreboard with our top score so far this year, and I update it every single meeting. Even if it means we haven't run the robot, we've got 60, because we haven't made a mistake yet. And then going up from there and cheering lots when something works is a huge thing. So any questions or comments, or I'm going to hand it back to Emiko.
Thanks so much, Richard. Yeah, my role here is the same that you just did. If anyone has any questions for Richard, feel free to put them in the chat, and you can also unmute if you'd like to ask them aloud.
Richard, that was great. Ken McLean, thank you very much. Lots of information here.
I hope it helped, Ken.
Absolutely, thank you.
I think one of the big things that I wanted to talk about today was simplicity, and the fact that you see these really, really complicated robots. I almost want to tell you how we did last year. I'm going to. So I had a team that had 8 kids who were struggling with different levels of learning difficulty. And we used the kit bot that I just showed you, and we placed 6th at the province level and robot table, right behind Control Z. So you can do a lot with the kit bot. Like, you don't need, and it doesn't have to get very complicated. It really is team coordination and cohesion. If you think about basketball, we were just a team that worked together really well, as opposed to had any superstars. We didn't have any superstars at all.
Hi, Richard. I got a question.
Yeah.
Do you mind introduce a little bit about the age range of your team members, your kids?
Sorry,
The ages range of your kids, your team members.
our team members, well, were probably around grade 6, most of them. Is that the question?
Yes.
Yeah, around grade 6 or grade 7, grade 6, grade 7, a couple of them, and grade 5, some of them. So 5, 6, 7. As you have team members that work through FLL for multiple years, they get a lot of experience, and they are able to build their own robots, and then they are able to do much more complicated things. When you have, it's just kids that are new to the FLL program, to the challenge program, I would recommend that they stick with something simpler, and then ramp up from there over the seasons.
Thank you.
I don't know, Eric, you're a longtime coach. Would you have anything to add to that, or can I put you on the spot?
No, the only thing I wanted to add is, I don't know how many of your workshops or training sessions I've attended, but each time I learned something new. You're a great instructor and a great model for all of us.
Thanks.
There's a lot of things here that you talked about, which my team could definitely benefit from. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I can ask a question if we have time, if there's no others. You used this kit bot, I can't remember the name of it, and you modified it a little bit. Do you want to maybe share with the coaches how you prep the team members for their RDES around the robot design when you take that approach, and the modifications that they've made to the bot?
Yeah, so I'm going to show the bot here again, so this is the bot that our team built from the kit bot. So this is the bottom view, so you can see the bumpers here on the front and back. So I actually use your teams as an example, Eric, and I say, when you watch really high-end teams at the provincial level, I tell them stories that they might not think of as a first-year team because they haven't been there yet. I tell them that the table, you'll see high-end teams really use the sides of the table to run along the edge of the table, and you'll see them back into the side of the table to locate the robot and square it up against the wall. And with the kitbot, the way that it sits out of the box, you can't do those types of things. And I talk about having a nice square edge on the back and the front. And then as soon as you kind of do that conversation with the students, they want to take the robot away and start building those bumpers right away, because they realize that if the really high-end teams are running against the wall, if the really high-end teams are bumping up against things to locate and solidly move pieces around the table, then they need to be there, right? That's what they need to talk about. And that loop over the center is problematic in the basic robot from the perspective of if you attach something to the side, it throws your robot off balance. And really kind of keeping the weight on the center line is key to it tracking straight. And I described those challenges that you see teams get into kind of up front. And I watched some videos of really, really high-end expert robots, and the kids are blown away by that. You know, there's lots out there on YouTube. You can just pull them up. And you know, I point out things that are happening in those robots. And I say to them that, you know, you don't have to build that big a robot or elaborate a robot to take some of the ideas and incorporate them into the way that you want to play the game. And do something that's appropriate for the fact that you're a brand new team, right? You want to be positive about it all. So when they get into the RDES, they talk a little bit about putting the bumper on the front and the back. And then when they start talking about sensors, which is a big question that comes up in the RDES, we talk about the rotation sensors and using the rotation sensors in the motors. But then they often end up talking about squaring up against the wall as a strategy, rather than using a follow the line. And they talk about reliability a lot. So I think if you know that you chose to do something because you can do it 10 in a row and it's in your comfort zone, that scores some points with the judges as well by having that reliability. And then, you know, when the judges say, how many points do you score? And your team comes out with a number like 320, and they're looking at you like you've got this kit bot and you're about to score 320 points. They're, what? Oh yeah, how often do you get 320? Oh, every time. Like it kind of has a little bit of an impact, right? So I think creating that reliability and having it so that it's very clearly within the skill set of the kids, right? You've got this kit bot, you've made 2 changes, and then the programs that you're showing off are go forward, turn, you know, they're really, really simple, and no one's going to debate with the students, you know, did you write this? Is this something that's in your skill set? So explaining to the judges why you focus on reliability, I think is a big piece of the RDES. And then showing off your unique attachments. So this, you see that? That was our slapper. So for the flags last year, so the robot would go up onto the ramp and then it would lower the slapper onto the flags. And it was just wide enough that it would hit both sides and both flags would go up. And so instead of we tried to get the robot to the top and we couldn't get there. And then the kids said, well, do you have to get up there? Is that a requirement to have the robot on the flags? And no, it was to raise the flags. And so we talked about this, and eventually someone said, well, why don't we do a fly swatter? And I said, well, you got lots of Lego, build a fly swatter, go for it. And then they did. So anyway, you never know where ideas are going to come from. They're pretty creative. They can come up with different ways to solve the problem. And I guess what I do is I try and steer them away from ideas that are beyond their skill set. You know, let's get the gyro out and track ourselves up the ramp. I don't think we can get there in the 8 weeks that are left between now and December, right? So it's just too hard. Keep it within your skill set, keep it light. Hopefully that answers the question, does it? But the RDES?
Thank you.
Yeah, focus on reliability and your attachments. Having said that, at the provincial level, even when we had really like second and third place scoring robots, we didn't get RDES callbacks all the time. So just because it's not that impressive to have a simple robot, but with the new changes where the table score actually matters a lot, then it is more impressive, right? To be able to score those points on the table.
Great. Thank you, and thanks everyone for participating in the question and answer segment and sort of bringing your thoughts to the table. Thanks again, Richard, and thanks
Thank you,
all of you for
Emiko.
being here.
Thanks, Emiko. Bye, Richard.
Bye.